online anonymity is a complete myth.
Privacy matters because we all need a margin of discretion around our lives so that we can exercise some control over them. The fact of the matter is that we've already long ago given up much of our privacy as soon as we started to email and use mobile telephones. If your neighbours knew details of your bank account or your medical record or could listen into your quarrels with your spouse, you would be very disconcerted because you would feel that you were losing control over areas of your life that just belong to you. That's why privacy really matters.
I am a 26-year-old British Asian woman working in media and living in a southwest postcode in London. I have previously lived at 2 addresses in Sussex and 2 others in northeast London. While growing up, my family lived in a detached house in Kent and took holidays to India every year. They mostly did their shopping online at Ocado, gave money to charities, and read the Financial Times. Now, I live in a recently converted flat with a private landlord, and I have a housemate. I am interested in movies and startups, and I have taken 5 holidays in the past 12 months, mostly to visit friends abroad. I am about to buy flights within 14 days. My annual salary is between £30,000 and £40,000 a year. I don't own a TV or watch any scheduled programming, but I do enjoy on-demand services such as Netflix or Now TV. Last week, I passed through Upper Street in North London on Monday and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. I cook a little, but I tend to eat out or get takeaways often. My favorite cuisines are Thai and Mexican food. I don't own any furniture, and I don't have any children. On weeknights, I tend to spend the evenings with my university friends having dinner. I usually buy my groceries at Sainsbury's, but only because it's on my way home. I don't care for cars or own one. I don't like any form of housework, and I have a cleaner who lets herself in while I'm at work. On Fridays, you'll find me at the pub after work. At home, I'm far more likely to be browsing restaurant reviews rather than managing my finances or looking at property prices online. I like the idea of living abroad someday. I prefer to work as a team than on my own. I'm ambitious, and it's important to me that my family thinks I'm doing well. I'm rarely swayed by others' views. This motley set of characteristics, attitudes, thoughts, and desires come very close to defining me as a person. It is also a precise and accurate description of what a group of companies I had never heard of, personal data trackers, had learned about me.
Google.
The great worry that we have in the digital age is that we've already given so much of it up, both to private agencies and to public ones.
Thank you. How might we give up personal information online?
Every single time we go online, every time we look at a website, every time we send an email message, every time we make a phone call with our mobile telephones, we're exposing ourselves, we're stripping ourselves naked to the view of anybody who is interested to find out what we're doing. We know already that private agencies are keen to look at the pattern of use of the internet that we indulge in so that they can target advertising at us. And governments in the Western world, indeed in the world at large, are anxious to keep a record of who people are talking to, what kind of information they're finding out, so that they can detect patterns of, that suggest crime or terrorism in the offing. And in all these ways, therefore, we expose ourselves to view through the use of these devices. Not that we would want to give up using these devices, they're just so useful to us, but they do expose
Android
us.
phone, or even those of you with Apple or an Apple account, you can find this information. So let's look at Google. Just type in location tracking or timeline, and you can actually see all the places you've been. So here's me. But more importantly, let's go pick a date. Here's September 12th of this year. I was in New York. I left the hotel at the New York Palace, went over to the Eugene O'Neill Theater, all date and time stamped. I came back to the palace. I went to J. Crew, bought some socks, very important. Went back to the palace, hung out there for an hour, checked emails, went over to Rockefeller Center. You can probably guess what I saw at the Rockefeller Center. Those are my photos, by the way. Google courteously appended them to the timeline for me. Every single step of mine tracked. And every one of you that have any device, either Apple or Android, have exactly that amount of tracking in your lives if you choose to go look at it. Are you being robbed?
So how valuable is our personal information?
If you think about all the different aspects of your life, ranging from your income to your health, to your relationship with your employers, to your intimate relationships with your family, all the information, much of the information that's involved there is very, very important to you personally. It's very valuable to you because you're able to manage it, able to present yourself to other people, able to keep new ideas, which are still rather tender and not ready for scrutiny, growing until they're ready to be aired publicly. In all these ways, we've got this real need to have a wide margin of personal discretion around us. And if other people know what's going on in our thoughts and in our personal records and communications, they've invaded that margin and they've made it less easy for us to control our own lives.
Is your personal data exhaust? And if you look really closely at that exhaust, it's not carbon monoxide and particulates, it's actually ones and zeros. And in fact, hidden in those ones and zeros are dollar signs because that is worth a tremendous amount of money. And so here's Facebook, our friend. Location history, obviously conveniently turned on automatically for you. Bottom left, tracking of everywhere someone's been, and I'm going to tell you a story about a friend of mine in Palo Alto in California who went shopping. Well, shopping is actually a bit of an extension. Went with his wife browsing homes, just privately having a look, took some photos, and posted them on Instagram. And now you can guess why Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion. Posted them on Instagram, and what happened the very next day? This. Cross-referenced against Zillow, which is a real estate homes compendium that actually matched the photographs and his location against the houses he and she were looking at, and gave them not only a realtor named Kathy Thierkel with 33 stars, by the way, she's really good, and pricing, but actually cross-referenced credit history, income statements, and location to give him offers on that house, all without his consent or knowledge. There's a lot of money in that data.
Should we be worried about this accumulation of personal information? And if so, why? What does it matter?
We should be very worried, I think, about the amount of data concerning ourselves, including very personal, private, intimate data about ourselves, which is now out there in the public domain, both in private and in public hands. We should be worried about it for a large number of reasons, but one central reason is that this information is stored digitally in one or another location out there in a way that we may not have access to ourselves. And it's very, very easily manipulated. It's very easily changed by somebody who is either lazy, incompetent, or malevolent in some way. It's very easy for that information to be shared and for patterns of information to seem to appear to certain agencies that could put one under suspicion even if one weren't a suspicious individual. In other words, the prospect for misinformation, for corruption of our personal information, and for mistakes to be made about our personal information is massively increased by the fact that there is so much of it out there and so much of it is collated by different agencies. Inefficiency and patchiness of information is a great protection of personal privacy. And the more efficient the systems are that collect and collate data about us, the more the potential is for mistake and misuse.
Along my journey of discovery, my first reaction was shock. I immediately wrote to my local council and asked them to make my voter records private. I made up a fake email address and I started registering with a fake age and gender. I turned off targeted advertising and I asked Facebook to send me all the information that they held on me, including things I had deleted, and spent hours poring over it obsessively.
But now, see, the problem is that I'm not telling you to denounce all things tech. And go.
I couldn't be a digital hermit. It wasn't realistic for me to stop using social media, search and navigation apps, and my iPhone, all a part of modern life that I cherished and needed. Instead, I realized that the knowledge itself was empowering. Knowing all the different ways in which my data was being shed and collected made me more responsible about where I put it. For example, I stopped signing up to supposedly free services, for example, a VIP card at my local hairdresser or a discount coupon at your supermarket. Whenever I download an app, I make sure to check my settings to see what permissions it has. Anything that seems unnecessary, like access to my location, I turn off.
Have faith in these services, but protect yourself against the worst. So you might be sat there thinking, okay, I've said all these things, so what would I suggest you do? The first thing I suggest is that you take back control of your devices. Use them because you want to, not because they want you to. Something as simple as disabling your lock screen notifications and vibrations for things like instant messaging and social media can truly help out, as well as disabling your battery percentage, as you can eyeball it and really don't need to know exactly what percentage it's at. Just these two things can hugely reduce the amount of stress in your life and the amount of time you spend looking at these devices. Go through your settings on social media accounts and make everything as private as possible. You really won't miss out on anything, and your friends will still be able to find you. A big problem is the apps ask for access to, for example, your media library. But that one click gives that app fully uncontrolled access to all of your pictures and videos as long as it's installed. What's worse is there's absolutely no indication as to when these things are being accessed. And the same goes for your microphone, camera, and GPS services. You can say no to these apps, and they continue to work absolutely fine. Instead of saving that image, send yourself the URL and save it safe from your computer. Be suspicious. Go through your list of all the installed apps on your phone and disable access to things they shouldn't have. If you can be bothered to, turn off all this access each time you stop using the app. I know it sounds tedious, but it's something that you need to be doing in order to keep yourself secure. Something very important is to use multiple personas online. Use one for social media, one for commerce, and one for your professional life, with a different email address for each of them. The point here is to allow these companies to track as much data as they can with you. That's going to happen whether you like it or not. But the point here is to make it anonymous and not be able to link it back to you.
Ultimately, there is hope.